Hey everyone, welcome back to She Verse Podcast. I'm your host, Brooke Wright, and today's guest is Coach Maz. Hello, Coach Maz.
Hello. Hi, everyone.
Thank you so much for being a guest today.
Thank you for having me.
So, can you tell our listeners what inspired you to write The Audacious Black Sheep?
Ah, yeah, that was The Audacious Black Sheep is my most recent book. And it's the same thing that inspired me to write my first book. And it's really speaking to people who feel like they are the black sheep of their family. So if you've ever felt like you're misunderstood and you feel like it's been your downfall, the book just speaks to your cultivating that unique part of yourself and creating something beautiful with it, because we all have it. In fact, many of the people we admire have that. And so whether it's through your just being different in your family or whatever the cause is, it might have been caused by trauma, that is actually your strength. So I was inspired because I was a black sheep and never really fit in anywhere. So I thought there's other people out there just like that. So that's why I wrote that book, to speak about that experience.
Oh, okay. I'm the black sheep in my family too. Because I listen to like heavy metal rock music, so that's not normal for my family. So I'm
Oh.
definitely the black sheep. But so who is the audacious black sheep in your own story?
Well, it's me. It's me, of course, and it's people who tend to gravitate to me. So may be friends or what have you. Anyone who is a deviant. So, like you say, you, Brooke, were the black sheep because you don't subscribe to the norms within the culture. Maybe you think a bit differently. Maybe you look a bit different. Whatever. But for me, yeah, culturally, in the religious sense, in every sense, yeah, I've always been quite inquisitive, and that isn't always welcome. So when you're, in the church, for example, and you are a very analytical thinker, it doesn't always gel. Or in my family, who are of Caribbean heritage, certain things that I like to do. For example, I love to solo travel right now. I love to go to places, and they're like, why do you want to go there? Why are you going to the theater? Why are you going to all these experiences? Because apparently black people don't do them. I'm like, really? Well, I do, and I'm going to do it. So there you go. Yeah.
Yeah, usually that's what I get too, because I go to I like museums and like ballets and plays and stuff like that. And usually, black people don't usually like that stuff. They don't usually go to that stuff. I asked my mom if she would go with me one day. She's like, I don't like that stuff. And I'm like, yeah, usually it's like not a our cultural thing for us. Usually it's like probably like rap music or like reggae music or like something like that, like a concert.
Yeah, and I do get that, Brooke. But I mean, how would your mother or my mother, anyone, how would you know if you like it if you've never tried it? And that's the
Exactly.
thing. So, because I know when they see my Facebook or they see my pictures, they're like, "Oh, it looks beautiful there. Why didn't you invite me?" And I said, "Well, I did. Number one, number two, you said black people don't go there, so you didn't want to go. So I went by myself, and I had a good time. Don't sit there on the sidelines hating." But just
Yeah.
because you have put yourself in a prison and you have run with the narrative that you can't do certain things, I'm going to do what I need to do. So, yeah.
Yes. Yes, I agree. I like your spirit. I like you. So, so are
Good. I
you?
like it too.
Do you ever get scared like traveling by yourself? Like this is the question I asked questions. Do you get scared traveling by yourself? Like I'm scared to travel by myself, but I think I'm gonna do it. But do you ever get like fearful?
Occasionally, when I first, so I've been on this solo travel expedition for the last 3 years, and what I've always been, well, not scared. I have reservations, and yes, sometimes I can get a bit anxious depending on what part of the world. I think it's cultural as well, because I know you're in the States. My family in the States, sometimes they don't even leave the state. I'm like, if you're going to go on a plane, you better make sure you leave the country. Why are you going on a plane and you're still in the same country? Leave the country. There's so much of the world to see. And it was during the lockdown after the whole COVID thing, and I just saw so many people with dreams die. And I just thought, when I was kind of locked up in the house, I thought, you know what, all the things I wanted to do, as soon as I'm released, I'm gonna do them. So yeah, I couldn't let that stop me. So yes, I do sometimes, especially when I'm traveling to, even in COVID, I was traveling when they were like, this is on the red zone. I was like, you know what, I'm going. If I'm gonna die, I'm gonna die. So I did. Yeah, I was like, well, and I've had a great time. I've been very fortunate. Even in the last year, Brooke, I've traveled to 8 countries. But what I believe, and not just for travel, and I'll tell all the listeners this, the fear when you try something new doesn't actually leave you. So every time you do something new, I call them the gremlins. They come and they tell you, who do you think you are to do that? Maybe you should stay at home where it's safe. And I have to wrestle with those. And I'm like, I'm going to do it. Like, who was it? Susan Jeffers. She wrote the book, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. That's what we have to do. So there's nothing wrong with feeling fearful, but you can still enjoy your life and get through it. And you'll be surprised. You learn so much about yourself, about other cultures and people, and you're blessed for it. So yeah, why not?
Yeah, yeah, I agree. So can you share a little bit about your upbringing and faith journey?
Yeah, certainly. Okay, so as you know, well, I am the family are from Jamaica, so that's for all the Jamaicans listening. Trauma. We all have trauma, and most of us were raised. I certainly was in a Christian household, so we are very Jamaicans. We are very patriotic. We're very religious people for the most part. Even the ones that are murderers and other kind of criminals, they can quote the Bible, but they still do what they do. And growing up in a single parent household, I was raised. My mother, she did do her best to make sure I was in the church, but what I saw was a lot of hypocrisy, and I questioned things. And even as a child, it wasn't welcome. So I grew up in a Pentecostal tradition, and that's fine. I was always um, curious about God. The religious part, and even to today, the religious part, I do not subscribe to so much. So I'm very unorthodox. And especially, in the Black church, all of this, I don't like theatrics, is what I call it. Theatrics. All of this show uh, it appears to be a show. Sometimes it could be genuine, but this show that we put on for people, for the world. So I did grow up in that, but I never left the faith. I left the church a few times, and I was involved in a cult later down the line, which I didn't know because it looked like every other Pentecostal church, but they had some funny beliefs, let's say that. And it wasn't, that's how God grew my faith. He taught me about grace, because I never even, although you sing songs about amazing grace, and I never really knew what grace was. God began to show me. It's funny how he uses people who weren't even in the church, and he used books and television programs. He taught me because I was following a different doctrine that I did not know, and I was always dependent on the pastor. Pastor, give me a word, or this prophet said this. So he wanted to work out my faith. So that brings me to where I am today, and that it also is a motivation for writing. Even my first book, Arise Kintsugi Queens, You're Becoming All You're Meant to Be, and The Audacious Black Sheep. So because of these experiences and the stigma, I know that there are many people still in the church who perhaps haven't developed their relationship with God, and that needs to be the forefront. So yeah, so that's where we are today, Brooke. I just believe that we're all here for a purpose that God has created. So therefore, like Miles Monroe says, you have to consult the manufacturer. If you don't know what that is, consult the manufacturer so that you can live life the way that you're meant to, instead of being in a dead end job or a relationship that you're not meant to be in and making yourself miserable. You can do it, a different way and really thrive. And that's what I want to do. So there you go. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. I did not know that some Pentecostal churches were cults like that. Like, I'm learning a lot. Like, I did not know that at all. But
Don't get me wrong. Sorry, Brooke, just a disclaimer. I'm not saying, because I said this in Bible study the other day and they all jumped on me. What? Not all Pentecostal churches are. No, I'm not saying that. I'm just telling you that the one I went to, and they're actually a brand, they're world known. This particular one, don't get me wrong, they're good people, they're just misguided. They would not call themselves a cult. But if you look at the definition and what the doctrine that goes away from biblical and the allegiances that they pledge to people other than Jesus, let's say, in the same way that maybe we have some Jehovah's Witnesses, I have some friends that are, that's fine if you want to, but it wasn't right for me. So in the same way that if I tell you about a bad dating experience, Brooke, I'm not saying that all men are terrible and you must stay away from it. No, Pentecostal churches are fine. This one was pretending to be. They were masquerading, and that's where the deception came in. So yeah.
Okay. So what was your healing process like after leaving that spiritually abusive environment?
Yeah, thanks be to God, because I the healing process was very slow. So this was back in, when did this happen? 2011. And I've written a bit about this and spoken about it, but it was very slow because, when you're taught, well, I was taught to, you respect your elders, you don't, religious authority figures, government, you don't question, you just do what you're told. And but it just didn't make sense. So I was praying about it and I couldn't get any peace. And actually, God instructed me. He told me to leave that church a while back. And I was like, no, I don't want to seem like I'm rebellious. And so, but the pastor there confirmed it. He said, maybe you should go somewhere else. I was like, oh, I said, Pastor, aren't you going to pray for me? Because I don't want to be misguided. He said, no, leave. I was like, okay, then. Can't say it clearer than that. I'm going. Bye. And so that was the beginning of the healing process. So I want us all to remember that it's very difficult to heal in places where we have been tormented, in places where we've been inflicted, where the oppressor is. So sometimes you have to, and this is for our relationships. And if you're in a marriage, I'm not saying run away and leave your husband, but sometimes you need to have that breathing space to be able to reflect and process. And that's what happened with me. I left, and for a while I was wounded. I was like, how could, and I felt stupid after that turned to anger. I was like, how dare they? How I was doing all the ministries and I gave them money and I did this, and how could they? I feel so stupid. But anyway, that was the beginning. So I did all of that. I prayed. God showed me things. He directed me. He sent destiny helpers, and I also had a period of therapy, not just for that, but just for other traumas, which were again triggered by that experience. And I had a coach. This is how I became a coach, because I had coaching, and the results were so amazing. I was like, yeah, I need to be a coach. This is amazing. So all of that. So in answer to your question, it was a culmination of events that led me. And even in writing the last 2 books that I have in the last 3 years, that is still, and I'm still healing, because healing, as you know, is a bit like an onion. You just peel the layers off, layer after layer, and something new gets revealed. You put it to take it down to the altar, surrender it, heal. And we walk and we move on. So yeah, that's where I'm at right now.
Definitely. That's great though, because it sometimes takes people like a long time to heal. and
Yeah.
like certain things still trigger them. So yeah, definitely. So what message were you most passionate about getting across?
Yeah, generally speaking, I would say please, especially for the women, but the men find this hard as well because some men may find it, especially within our community, find it difficult to express what they need because they're not allowed to. But I would say, please don't suffer in silence. I want to say it again, do not suffer in silence. So whatever it is that you're going through, um, you need, as I've learned from my experiences, you need to be able to heal. And it's hard to heal where you've been oppressed. When we, Brown talks a lot about this, often when we feel seen and understood and we're heard, that goes a long way towards the healing process. It's very hard to heal when you do feel misunderstood and people dismiss what you're going through and people compare traumas. I hear that a lot because I do work in the mental health field as well. So as well as coaching, I am a social worker by trade. I work to discharge psychiatric patients and I'm always interested in their stories and they feel ashamed and they feel like, oh my gosh, it's so embarrassing, I can't say. And they feel just as ashamed as someone who in the church was like, I've got this addiction, I'm addicted to porn, or you know what, this happened, I was sexually abused, or whatever the case may be, because those kind of experiences are so traumatic that it can silence us. And we think, oh, well, nobody needs to know that. But yes, people do need to know. And there's power in your story. So please get the help you need. Of course, we pray, and God is a great healer. The Holy Spirit can heal. But don't be afraid to, because I'm not with the spiritual bypassing, by the way, don't be afraid to see if you do need professional help. I had it. I was initially, because I'm a mental health professional. So imagine me going like, oh my gosh, I should know all of this and I should be able to help myself. But sometimes when you're so wounded, you need, just like a doctor. If the doctor has a physical wound or any other kind of needs to go, they might need to go to hospital sometimes. You need somebody else to check that. You might treat it at home, but actually the wound is too big and it's bleeding. You need somebody else to patch that up sometimes. So I would just say, please don't suffer in silence. And there's power and healing in your story, and your setbacks, your traumas are your strength, just like the concept of beauty for ashes. And it refers back to my first book, which is it refers to the kintsugi principle. Brooke, have you heard of kintsugi? Are you familiar with? Um, it's a Japanese art form. I
No.
don't know.
What
Well,
is
just
it?
to
Is it kind of
summarize,
like
yeah, you may have seen it. It's like when they break a piece of pottery or something, they glue it together with this golden substance to, so rather than, us in the West, we throw away. So it might be a vase or something. If you break a vase, you might think, oh, I don't, it's broken. You just discard it. But in the Japanese art form of kintsugi, they recreate it and it's transformed into something more beautiful. And that is a metaphor for our lives. We can embrace our imperfections. So just because you've had traumas and setbacks and you felt unworthy, you were made to feel unworthy, that's not true. You can be recreated and developed and restored and redeemed to become something so much more beautiful if you embrace it and if you surrender that thing that has held you down. So yeah, that's it in a nutshell. So yeah, please share your truths and don't suffer in silence.
Yeah, I agree. So why do you feel like, I mean, yeah, why does so many people feel like they're the odd ones out in their family?
If you Yeah, for various reasons, because you might well be. And I want to point out that I'm not referring to the people that have self-inflicted this. So if you've done something, you've committed horrific crimes and you're just a complete psychopath, well, yeah, you will be the black sheep because you're doing stuff that you ain't supposed to be doing. But if you naturally, I'm talking about the people who have been survivors, victims. Often they've been abused. Often they just don't measure up because maybe their family is quite wealthy, and they just didn't do the stuff that they didn't measure up to the expectations. They were just different. They didn't conform, and it was a source of disgrace for the family. And they had the golden child, which may have been one of their siblings, and they were like, "Why can't you be more like Mary or John?" And you're just too different. The fact that you're different is a God-given clue that you are sent. That's your mission. That's the clue for what you're here for and what you're meant to be doing. You don't think like them. And in my family, I was very peculiar. I mean, at 6 and 7 years old, who asked the question, "Who am I?" I'm looking in the mirror saying, "Who am I?" In my leotard and my leg warmer, saying, "Who am I?" I was a strange child. Yeah. And they were like, I was always told, "Shut up. You ask too many questions. Shut up." Just because. And in Caribbean household, yeah, you're used to getting beat. You get beat down. Don't ask. So I learned to be silent, because my voice was not even, and this went on even into my 20s. It's like, shut up. Don't say nothing. Just be quiet. Nobody cares about what you say. So I really struggled to find my voice. So for me, it's really important, because there are people out there who are black sheep through no fault of their own. And this speaks to generational traumas, Brooke, because just because granny and granddad did certain things, they were alcoholics or they were promiscuous. We're not allowed to speak about these family secrets. And we only find out that granddad or dad had 5 other children outside at his funeral, or at somebody's funeral, or, it's like, that's messed up. Why do I have to carry your secrets? That's a terrible burden to put on me, just because you did the wrong thing. And if you would have told us your testimony, we could do something. But you can't heal if you're in denial, if you're spiritually bypassing and doing this toxic positivity thing where, it's so ridiculous, Brooke, because, we go to funerals and we tell people don't cry. Why shouldn't they cry? Isn't that the most appropriate place? Why are you telling me not to cry when you're beating me? You're beating me and you're scarring me. I should cry, right? What do you mean don't cry? So this is what I mean. And in the church, we've adopted this thing about, oh, well, let's not tell that part of your testimony. Why not? Why not? Tell every part, because someone needs to hear that. Because I used to listen in church and think, oh, that doesn't apply to me, because you sound like an angel that's just come from heaven, and that's great for you, but it could never be for me. And the enemy would kind of torment me with that, be like, you're not God's chosen people. No, they're better than you, and you're just nobody. You're nothing. So I want us to know that even if you are in the gutter, even if you are a sex worker, even if you just came out of prison yesterday, you are still worthy. And God does his best work with the underdog people like us, who people said were not worth anything. So that's why I just want to reiterate that message, because people are holding on to stuff and they can't get their healing because they were told there's nothing wrong. If you're always told there's nothing wrong, then why do you need healing? That means you're defective and something wrong with you. But that was a lie. It was never the case. It was wrong. What happened to you was wrong. They shouldn't have done that. Now we need to learn how to forgive and to move on and to process our grief for the person, for the woman that we could have been, that we thought we were. And we can move on into the authority that God has given us, and carry on with our purpose for life. So yeah.
Yeah, I agree. So, what do you think? What do you think it means to you to let your light shine?
Oh, well, as you said, well, it means to be, I know you mentioned the name, so audacious. I love that, because it means to be audacious. It means to be bold-faced, zealous, and unapologetic. Be authentically yourself. No more shrinkage, no more silence, because, oh my gosh, it might offend. I can't have boundaries because people will get upset. I can't say that. I've got to edit my testimony. No more of that. Whoever doesn't like it, that's on them. You have to be bold. I like what what's her name, Williamson says, and there's you can look it up. She basically is saying we don't do ourselves any favors by shrinking. You know, people need to see our light. We don't do ourselves any favor by saying, well, who am I? Who am I to speak out? Who am I? Why not you? Why not you? Because someone is waiting for that. So when we give, Brené Brown talks about this as well. So when we share our stories, and there's so much that connects us rather than divides us, then we give permission for the healing to take place, and we can say, yeah, me too. That happened to me. Oh, and even if it's not exactly the same, we can empathize. And really, we need to be agents of change. We need to be the change we want to see. That's another indication, by the way, when you're the black sheep and you're like, somebody should do something about this. Why is it like this? I'm tired of all this stuff that goes on in the church or in families where we're sworn to secrecy. If you keep noticing a pattern, then you're the one. You're supposed to do something about it. You're noticing it because the previous generations, they may have noticed, but they weren't able to break free. You are the one who's been called to break those generational traumas and cycles. You are the one, if you've been subject to domestic violence and you're like, hang on a minute, this ain't right. If you think it's not right, other people may have said, oh, well, it's just tradition and we've always done it like this. But why is it that you're thinking otherwise? So, yeah, be curious and really just set yourselves free. Honestly, you'll thank yourself. It's the best. Invest in yourselves. It's the best thing you could ever do.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Set yourself free. How do you define spiritual abuse and how is it different from religious trauma?
Well, because both are interlinked, often if you have been spiritually abused, you're going to have some form of religious trauma that is the byproduct of that. What I would say, and I talk about this in my book, there's a whole chapter on it in The Audacious Black Sheep. Uh, I want to just put the disclaimer out there. So when we talk about spiritual ab- abuse, oh, sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, a message came up. Spiritual abuse basically refers to the harm and hurt that people experience as a result of, and they may.
Hello? I can't hear you now. Hello? Hello? Sorry, you all having technical difficulties. So she'll be back on in a few minutes. Okay, guys. So, um, I want to thank you all so much for listening to this podcast interview. It doesn't look like she's coming back on right now. So, I guess see you all for the next interview tomorrow. Bye.